Good morning and thank you for staying tuned to Citizen TV on this 14th day of September 2021. My name is Sam Gituku and it's time I want us to have a conversation about a national deworming campaign that begins today, and we'll be here in studio speaking to Dr. Christine Wambugu, who is the head of the Division of Adolescent and School Health at the Ministry of Health. We also have one Moses Karate, who is the Deputy Director at the Primary Education in the Ministry of Education. Welcome both to studio.
Thank you.
And shortly we'll be joined by one Jeremiah Ongwara, who is the County Public Health Officer in Kisumu County, and we're here to talk about the national school-based deworming program that targets to have at least 6 million learners treated for intestinal worms, and we'll have to spend some time to understand what this is about. And Dr. Christine, let's begin with you and tell us about why this campaign, why now, and what are these worms that we are talking about?
Okay, so we have this national school-based deworming campaign. It is a way to have easy wins in improving the health of children. And there's been a study by Cambridge that showed that there are some counties that have heavy worm infestation, and the World Health Organization recommends that where you have more than 20% prevalence of worms in those counties, we have to deworm the children at least once a year. So this is the campaign that we are currently carrying out. Mm-hmm. Yes.
And the question is, because when I look at the program lineup, it's about to target some 14 counties, learners, 4 million in the second phase that begins today in 14 counties. We're talking about Narok, Nyamira, Kisii, Migori, Busia, Siaya, Kisumu, Homa Bay, Lamu, Tana River, Kilifi, Mombasa, Kwale, and Taita Taveta. And this would appear to be parts of Rift Valley, if you talk about Narok, at parts of Nyanza and the coastal region and western Kenya. So one would wonder, why are you targeting on this and all the other counties in the country out of 47?
Okay, so as I mentioned earlier, there was a study that was done that mapped out the areas where we have prevalence of more than 20% of worms. Mm-hmm. And in addition to these 14 counties, we also have Trans Nzoia, Bungoma, Nandi, Kakamega, Vihiga, Bomet, and Kericho that were dewormed earlier in February. As I mentioned, we do this deworming once a year. So the first cycle constituted these 7 counties. This is the next cycle that is constituting the 14 counties. Mm-hmm. So that at least all the high prevalent counties are dewormed at least once a year. Okay.
And Moses, if you had to reflect on the young learners, of course, they have to be in school between probably, what's the reporting time? Is it 7:30 until the younger learners may leave earlier? Yes. But what are those risks, the health risks that they face, or the hazards that they face while in school, that now this deworming campaign would come to address?
Thank you. One thing that we must realize is that the school children face a lot of challenges in terms of infection of worms. Mm-hmm. They are more prone to being affected by worms than the rest of the population because they are constantly playing with many items, including the soil. Mm-hmm. And that's where you get some of those worms from. Mm-hmm. And this, once they're infected, affects very many things, including mm-hmm. their physical development mm-hmm. and their mental development. So it is important that this problem is arrested early so that children can participate fully in learning. Mm-hmm. Children also that are infected constantly miss school. 2, these children also, when they finally get to school, they don't participate effectively in learning. Mm-hmm. There's nothing as interesting as teaching a healthy child. Those that are infected are lethargic, they lack energy. At times they don't even raise their hand up when they want to ask or answer questions because they are feeling weak.
Right.
So it is important that these children are treated. Mm-hmm. Yes.
And now joining us is James Ongwara, who is the County Public Health Officer in Kisumu County. Good morning, Jeremiah. I hope you can hear me. And let's begin by you telling us about the situation in Kisumu, even as you do your planning as a county government on how to run different health programs, what for you is the biggest challenge for the younger population? Well, unfortunately, we appear not to get through to Jeremiah, but Dr. Christine, let's get back to you. He talks about learners may appear lethargic in class, but if someone is infected, is it infected or infested? Infected with the worms, what are some of the symptoms that a parent or a teacher can pick up and say, you need medical attention now, and this could be the issue?
Okay, as he has mentioned, you'll find the child appears, dull, lethargic. They might not be paying attention in class. When you have heavy infestation, that is a large number of worms, you might even have abdominal distension, where you have, a large stomach with abdominal pain, issues of nausea, loss of appetite, vomiting. In some types of worm infestations, you might actually have some form of diarrhea, especially if you have like the whipworm. It presents with a bit of diarrhea. And these are some of the things that you can look out for. Okay. Yeah.
Oh, all right. And of course, the viewer can join in this conversation by calling us via 0742-961-339. I'll read that again as we put it on screen. 0742-961-339. You can make your call to raise your question or your concerns at a time that we know that starting today, the Ministry of Health and the Ministry of Education will be starting that campaign to deworm or to treat learners in the 14 counties in parts of Nyanza, Western Rift Valley, and the coastal region. I don't know whether now we have more. Jeremiah. Jeremiah, if you can hear me, well, we're still trying to get through to him. But if this infection comes, Dr. Christine, what would you say are the long-term effects? Are they there? Are they existent?
Yes. They're the long-term effects. As we mentioned, you'll get a lot of, as my colleague mentioned, cognitive and mental health challenges in the child. Because when you have this infestation, you have issues of malnourishment, because the worms take up the nutrients that are meant for the learning child to grow and develop. So the brain does not develop as fast, they're not as active in class, they don't participate well, and that leads to decreased learning, absenteeism from school. And this eventually translates to long-term effects where they don't perform well, they don't go to good universities, they don't get, the desired career that they want. And this eventually inevitably translates to economic loss to the country. So you see that when we deworm, we're actually, for every dollar that we spend on a child deworming, we actually accrue the benefits of about $230 over time. So this was a study that was done by Professor Michael Kramer some time back. He's a Nobel laureate. And it showed the economic benefit of deworming these children. So we have 25% less absenteeism, and then we have 13% increase in earnings over a 20-year period. These learners were followed.
Right. Yeah. And of course that would be, like you said, based on research that has been done. But Jeremiah now can hear us, I believe. Good morning, Jeremiah. And you're talking about this campaign and wondering...
Good morning.
Right. Great to hear you. Yes. We're just wondering, what is the situation in Kisumu County? When you look at your younger population, especially those in primary school, what are the main challenges they face on health? And does it make a case for the national program that begins today?
Thank you very much, Tuku. My name is Jeremiah Ongwara, County Public Health Officer Kisumu in the County Department of Health. This is a national school-based deworming program supported by Evidence Action, Deworm the World Initiative in collaboration with Ministry of Education and Ministry of Health. We are in year 9 of the program implementation. And this program targets children 2 to 14 years, both enrolled and unenrolled. And we are targeting common worms, that is soil-transmitted helminthes. And these common worms include, we have whipworm, which the other name, technical name is Trichuris trichiura. We have roundworm. The technical name for roundworm is Ascaris lumbricoides. And we have hookworm, and the technical name for hookworm is Ancylostoma duodenale or Neceta americanus. And we know that worms are a major public health problem in children in Kenya, and at least 6 million children are at risk of worm infection. And we are seeing that children are at risk because, number one, they often walk barefoot. These children sometimes swim and play in water, and when they play in water, they are likely to get schistosomes, and we are also targeting schistosomes, bilharzia, and schistosomes are divided into urinary infection and intestinal infection, the schistosomiasis, that is. These children often do not use toilets properly, and they less practice and washing. And sometimes also they play with soil, and we're talking about soil transmitted infections, and infected person can defecate on the soil, and then when we eat soil or we eat raw vegetable or we drink contaminated water or we use dirty hands, contaminated hands, we're likely to ingest the eggs of these worms. Or these same worms can also penetrate our skin like hookworm or Schistosoma mansoni or Schistosoma japonica. They can penetrate through our feet, or we can ingest roundworms, and then we end up with infections. And sometimes children do not know that they are infected. They may be there, but in the long run, these worms can negatively impact on their health and education. And looking at Kisumu, we are going to deworm tomorrow, which is 15th tomorrow, Wednesday, and we expect the national team to come, led by the PS Education, and we are targeting to deworm over 313,000 children in Kisumu, both enrolled and unenrolled. And when we talk about enrolled, we mean children within the school register. And when we talk about unenrolled, these are children 2 to 3 years who may be brought from home. And we are going to use albendazole, and this albendazole is a drug for soil transmitted helminthes this year, and the dose is just 400 milligram is one dose for children aged 2 to 14 years.
That's interesting, especially in the contextual realities that affect Kisumu County and the region that you come from. But I'm just wondering, because there is that heavy word that you've said there of the worms that appear in water, and you're not treating that this time round. How big a problem is it statistically, and what is the challenge not to engage in treatment for that this time round?
Thank you very much. This year around, due to logistical challenges in terms of procuring praxiquantel, which is the drug for schistosomiasis, we may not be able to deworm for schistosomiasis. However, we know that next year the drugs will be available, and we are just using the same drugs, government drugs, the drugs that are given within health facilities in Kenya. So we believe that, and we also have routine deworming that goes on within the public health facility. So children can still be dewormed in the routine during routine services.
Okay, so before I get to you, Moses, Dr. Christian, so the treatment for, let me make an attempt, schistosomiasis and the worms found in soil, it's different?
Yes, it is different. So for the soil transmitted helminths, we use albendazole 400 milligrams, as my colleague has said, and for the schistosomiasis, we use praziquantel.
Okay.
Yeah.
Very interesting. And Moses, when you listen to those conversations, I mean, because you're a leader for the whole country, I mean, when you compare all these threats and risks, what do they tell you in terms of approaches that you need to take as a ministry, whether it's in collaboration with the Ministry of Health or by yourselves?
Thank you. One thing that I want to say is that we work as a government in approaching different problems. we are basically in education. When we spot a health problem, we work with our colleagues in the Ministry of Health. And therefore, it's not a very big issue when we have a problem, because we are able to bring in our colleagues from the other parts or sections of the government, and we are able to handle the issue. The problem looks big, but with the support that we get from the Ministry of Health. And we have not started yesterday. We started in 2009.
Right.
And over a long period of time, that is from 2009 to actually 2018, we were able to reduce this problem by 62%. So we are making progress. Yes. Okay,
very interesting about that. So this treatment, Daktari, is it just to treat because you're suspecting there could be infection among the learners, or does it also deter, and for how long if tomorrow you get exposed?
Okay, thank you for that question. As I mentioned earlier, the treatment is given because we suspect it's more likely if you live in an endemic area for worms that you're going to have, especially the mannerisms that have been described. You know, the children like to play, sometimes they forget to wash their hands and they put their hands in their mouths. So it's likely that they have worms. And when you look at the actual worms, like for example the Ascaris lumbricoides, the female, once it infects someone, can lay up to 200,000 eggs per day. So you can imagine, that's just one worm. You can imagine now if 5 children have the roundworms, the level of eggs that will be in the soil, if they do not practice proper hygiene, like going to the toilet and not having open defecation, washing hands, cleaning the fruits and vegetables before they eat. So when you have a high prevalence in an area, it's more likely that you're going to have some level of infestation and others getting infected. So that's why the WHO and we recommend that we do mass drug administration, that we target this population and give them the drugs to prevent. And studies have shown that the prevalence actually goes down quite significantly, as my colleague has said, 62% reduction in learners. And this was a study that was comparing prevalence of 2012 to 2018.
Right.
There was another study that was done in 2001 when we did schistosomiasis treatment in Mwea that reduced prevalence from 70% to 5%.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's impressive. And hold that thought, because we need to listen to Kevin, who is calling us from Nairobi. Kevin, good morning. What's your question or concern?
Well, good morning. Good morning, Sam Gituku and his team. Well, my concerns are only two. The first concern is that when they are going to do this noble activity, after how long are they going to do it again? Because if we say that we have routine deworming activities that will take place in government, in health facilities, then some of these children or other kids may not have that opportunity to go to those facilities. So what are they doing to ensure that we have some routine checks and routine deworming activities in this school, even after this? Number two is that do they have some kind of sensitization to the parents of these kids so that they are also aware about this deworming? And because deworming mostly is not very free, so do they have sensitization to even the parents of the kids and to even the teachers? Do they have such programs? Thank you very much.
Okay. All right, and I think we can take it to Jeremiah in Kisumu. Kevin from Nairobi is asking the frequency of doing this treatment, because some learners may not have the opportunity to go to health facilities, and also what you're doing to sensitize parents about it.
Thank you very much, Sam. Under the school health program, we have a comprehensive school health program that is done or implemented by public health officers and the healthcare system team. And during these activities, we normally conduct advocacy campaigns on comprehensive activities for school health. And this is part of the campaign that we are doing. The radio talk show, the TV talk show that we have this morning at Citizen TV. We are conducting this so that we can engage the community. We are also engaging pupils and teachers, and during teacher training sessions that we did, and actually this program has a cascade approach where we have the county meeting, planning meeting is done, then we have sub-county level, ward, divisional level trainings done, then we train teachers, and every session we have around 40 teachers within a training session. And thereafter, the last part of it, we do the deworming day, which Kisumu will do tomorrow, and other counties will be doing their deworming activity program between today up to 16.
Okay.
So we have these campaigns in the media, we have community campaigns, we have promotional materials like posters that we have, and right now as you move in schools within Kenya, you'll see quite a number of posters for national school-based deworming displayed all over, talking about national school-based deworming targeting 2 to 14-year-old children.
All right.
We also have stakeholders, and when we have stakeholders forum, we talk about this. We create awareness about the need to be able to deworm children, because we know that the effects of worms in children are really adverse, and the worms will be able to interfere with the nutrient intake, and this can lead to anemia and malnourishment, and this at the same time will lead to mental retardation,
right,
and even physical growth will be interfered with. So we have to create all this, and we also do integration in various programs that we have in Kisumu.
All right, and Moses, there's that question about the frequency of this. Of course, there's that acknowledgement that there are not sufficient resources to go for the schistosomiasis. So what is the frequency of doing this treatment at a time that you know the infection or the infestation can recur?
Thank you very much. Before I come to that, I want to add that sensitization has been going on at the county level through the local radio stations. The children have been sensitized. They have been also told to inform their parents. And there are posters all over. We have had a campaign to sensitize the stakeholders, the parents, and the guardians. 2, this is a yearly program. And we are doing it this year. Next year we'll do it. 2020 we had effects of COVID, and therefore we were not able to do as much as we would have wanted. But I want to assure that this is a yearly program. And even if a child is not able to be in school today, right, tomorrow you'll be able to be there and will be treated, or the next day. Thank you.
Okay, and Daktari, because the environment you live in is very important and affects how these learners or the young children are exposed, even adults anyway. So what is the recommended way of dealing with this beyond the national government, I mean the government campaign that is sort of what's going on now?
Hey, as my colleague had mentioned, we have a comprehensive school health program that goes beyond just the deworming. The deworming is actually a component of a larger national school health program, which is done in conjunction, a collaboration between the Ministry of Education and the Ministry of Health, from the highest level up to the technical level where we are. So components of this school health program actually contribute and create synergies to improve the health of the learners.
Right.
We talk about the Wash in Schools program, which is part of the school health program. So you see, when you have adequate water and sanitation in schools, it also tends to reduce the burden of these soil transmitted helminths. When you have behavior change communication, frequency of washing hands, where COVID has actually given us an opportunity to improve on this, and we can hope to see gains on reduction of this transmission in that wider approach of, you know, behavior change communication, improving water, sanitation and hygiene, advocating for shoe wearing even to reduce the transmission of the hookworm, as my colleague in Kisumu has said.
Right.
So these are some of the other things that we are doing together to help reduce the burden. Yeah.
And that's an important area, Jeremiah, because if the area you're in and the counties around it, especially those that are around the lake, are that exposed, and children, there's so little you can do to really contain and control them if they want to play in the water. So what are some of the behavioral changes you are investing in as a government to ensure that proper hygiene is observed, whether people are at home or not?
Thank you very much, Sam. Just like my colleague, Dr. Christina said, we have water, sanitation and hygiene programs in our schools under School Wash, and we do train teachers, and we also conduct community sensitizations. If you move to schools, like now in Kisumu, you'll find quite a number of schools with hand washing stations. We also encourage on the construction and use of toilets within our schools and at home. At the same time, we have posters that will be able to change behavior and attitude about those undecided behavioral issues like lack of hand washing, like children rarely wash their hands, and sometimes they rarely use toilets. They like swimming, they like playing in water, and they end up with bilharzia, schistosomiasis, or hookworm, or roundworms when they eat raw vegetables. They eat raw fruits without washing their hands. And we also discourage open defecation. And we have a robust campaign on community-led total sanitation where we discourage open defecation, because open defecation will contaminate soil. And so we end up again with the circle continuing, where the infected person defecates openly on the soil, and then a person eats soil. You will get the eggs of either roundworms or hookworms. Hookworms will penetrate your skin up to your intestines. Roundworms will also be ingested into our system and get into your intestines. So we end up with this. So we try to really have a robust campaign to be able to create awareness about the need to be able to observe environmental hygiene and sanitation in Kenya. Thank you.
Okay, and of course, if you are joining us at this moment, you can make a contribution by calling us via 0742 961 339. The number is on your screen, 0742 961 339. We are talking about the National School-Based Deworming program that begins today in some 14 counties in parts of Rift Valley, Nyanza, Western and the coastal counties, and this is the reason being that there is high prevalence in those areas. And let's get back to you, Dr. There's a question that is coming from Twitter. I'll shortly be raising it with the panelists. But as we do that, I mean, how often, I mean, how soon should you begin to deworm your children at home?
So we recommend deworming from the age of 2 years and above. For the purposes of the National School-Based Deworming Program, our target is 2 years, the preschool children and the primary school children up to the age of 14, because as we mentioned earlier, they're the ones who have the largest infections with these worms in the community. So by targeting them, we actually reduce the load in the community. So we recommend from 2 years and above with the same dose of albendazole.
Still a tablet?
Yeah.
Okay. Let's listen to Nick, who is calling us from Kindaruma. Good morning, Nick. What's your concern?
Hello and good morning. My question is, besides this conventional medicine for deworming, are there foods or drinks or maybe natural herbs that we can be giving to kids or children, for that matter? Thank you.
Who wants to go for that? Do you want to do that, Dr. Christian?
Okay.
The alternatives apart from the modern medicine?
Thank you to our viewer for that question. I think for us as the Ministry of Health, we go with evidence-based medicine. So we want to look at what has been proven to actually treat the worms. So that is what we recommend. Something that has been tried and tested and does not have side effects and things like that. So we'll go with, the Ministry of Health actually recommends evidence-based treatment of the worms.
Okay, and there's a question here from Twitter. Engineer Lazaro is asking, he's one of our ardent viewers on Daybreak, 2 questions. Why can the authorities just go ahead to develop anti-worms vaccine for children? can your deworming medication be effective on the troublesome tapeworm? Who wants to take that? Daktari, Moses, or Jeremiah?
That is
Okay, Daktari, go ahead.
Okay, yeah. So we see that the deworming medicine is actually a cost-effective intervention. One tablet of albendazole costs about 3 shillings, vis-a-vis the cost of a vaccine. Yeah, so this is, it's a tablet that's already been developed, it's been used over years, it has proven efficacy, so it's actually cost effective. For tapeworms, there's actually treatment for tapeworms, and we have, as I mentioned earlier, different approaches. When you have high burden of worms, we go with the mass deworming, where we give now the albendazole, but when you have other conditions of other soil-transmitted helminths which are not targeted by giving albendazole, we recommend visiting the nearest health facility where treatment is readily available. At any government facility, you can readily get treatment for this. And in addition to this, we also utilize health days like the Malezibora. I'm sure you've heard of the Malezibora campaign for children 0 to 5 years, where also we give deworming as part of improving the health of these children.
All right,
Yeah.
and there's actually a vaccine for worms? Not known.
No, yeah.
Okay. Alongside deworming, how are they addressing the root cause of worms? I think this is in reference to the question we were talking about earlier on, and I think Jeremiah has quite elaborately handled on how they're approaching as the government of Kisumu. But Moses, how would you recommend that parents handle their learners? Because again, a very difficult group of children to deal with, especially those that are below 7 years, that it's difficult to take instructions and heed. How would you advise they deal with it?
Thank you. I want to start by saying that the children we are treating are from age 2 to 14. They are in primary schools, they are in our early child development centers, and some have not even gone to school. So those are the children that we will be treating for free. 2, it is important to know that our curriculum is as health and hygiene education. 2, parents should continue to emphasize to the children to handle things hygienically, so that even in school, at home, children are encouraged to wash their hands regularly, to take clean water, so that we do away with this problem. Because if you teach children and when they get to back at home, it's not reinforced, then it might not be very, very effective. So parents must ensure that their children stay in a clean environment and hygienic environment. Yes.
And Jeremiah, because you've witnessed this for a bit of time, bearing in mind that the campaign has been going on since 2009, are there any myths that you face, especially when you go to offer the treatment to the learners, and how do you debunk those?
Yeah, thank you very much, Sam. I think because of some severe adverse effects, we have parents and children who fear treatment for schistosomiasis using praxquentel, and because praxquentel has some severe adverse effects like dizziness, fatigue, abdominal pain, which are very mild and disappear after a while. So we have to be able to sensitize the community about this, that these are just side effects that will disappear after a while, so that they don't fear coming for when we deworm for schistosomiasis, bilharzia. At the same time, some people believe, I think this is just a cultural belief, that worms are just normal part of you, they are just part of your life. That when you have distended abdomen, probably that means you are healthy and strong. But we know that worms have very negative impacts on us. So, and we are saying here that these drugs are safe, They are effective and highly recommended by World Health Organization and Ministry of Health, and they are also been proven by Pharmacy and Poisons Board. So we are trying to dispel these myths and misconceptions. Hello? Yes, Sam.
Okay.
Yes, Sam. We are trying to dispel some of these myths and misconceptions regarding deworming, and especially the drugs that sometimes people might fear because of the severe adverse effects, which will just disappear after a while.
Okay.
And we encourage that for praziquantel, you need to eat 30 minutes before being dewormed. So that's also another thing that we have to really create awareness about. But we know that this program is very effective.
Jeremiah, allow me to cut you short.
Yes.
Allow me to cut you short. We'll get back to what you must do before getting the treatment. Let's first listen to Patrick, who is calling us from Lodwar. Patrick, good morning. What's your question?
Good morning. Hello?
Yes, go ahead. What's your question, Patrick?
Nataka nichangie maneno ya national school-based deworming.
Yeah.
Yes.
Endelea. Patrick, well, we lost Patrick there. I will try to get another caller there who are calling via 0742961339. And Jeremiah, let me get back to you. You are talking about what you must do before getting the treatment. Maybe you can just clarify so that parents are aware and they can prepare their learners appropriately.
Yeah, thank you very much, Sam. We are saying here that we have a cascade approach in national school-based deworming, where we do the county stakeholders meeting, which we did here in Kisumu and I think other deworming counties, 27 counties. This year we shall be able to deworm 21 counties. After the county stakeholders forum, you do the county training, where you involve Ministry of Education and Ministry of Health officials, and thereafter you do the teacher training sessions, and thereafter you come up with the deworming activity, deworming day, which Kisumu will do tomorrow on 15, and then you get back the report. So it is a cascade approach. So we are saying here that eating is important, and especially if you are deworming for praziquantel, and this year around we may not be deworm for schistosomiasis. We are deworming for common worms, which are whipworm, roundworm, and hookworm. So we just need to prepare, and we want parents to be able to allow their children to come to school on that day. And because we are using schools, because children are readily available in schools, communities and trust parents, communities trust teachers, parents trust teachers, and teachers are very good with their pupils. So we're just telling community members that we need to be ready for the deworming day. Let us allow children to be dewormed so that they can be healthy, they can grow, and we normally say, pamoja tuangamize minyoo. Kwa afya na elimu bora tuangamize minyoo. That's our slogan.
Indeed, pamoja tuangamize minyoo. And Kiri is calling us from Bomet. I wonder why it's just men who are calling this morning. Did we just lose Kiri? Yes, I think we just lost Kiri there. You can call back, so we'll be listening to your question. Also, women who are mothers mostly. And Daktari, the question I was asking Jeremiah, so for someone who will receive the treatment tomorrow in course of this week, you don't need to have eaten, or you don't need to have fasted?
No.
It's not necessary?
No. For this week, no. For albendazole, no. But for praziquantel, we recommend that you have a meal at least half an hour before. But in this round, we are not administering praziquantel.
Okay, all right. I'll be asking you about anything about any adverse effects after the treatment. But Sergius is saying on Twitter, there's a possibility that some child had never been dewormed and they're in high school now. Can you extend the exercise to high schools? And I think that's a question for the gentleman from the primary education desk. Can you extend it?
Thank you. We base our actions on evidence that we get from KEMRI. And KEMRI says those that are at highest risk are the children or the pupils in primary school. And that's where we are focusing. A program must also be cost effective. Probably in secondary you might not find many infected, probably one or two who could probably walk to a health facility and get treated. the ones at the highest risk are in the age group of 2 to 14. And majority of them are in primary schools. Yes.
So, Doctor, if you have an infestation of worms and you leave it untreated, what happens, especially for someone, like the question refers, that someone who maybe was in class 8, was never dewormed in that year, probably had been exposed and now continues with life and never took care to go for treatment even from home. What happens to your system?
What usually happens is that these worms, they persist, and the learner keeps shedding the eggs and contaminating the population. So in case this learner gets more and more infestation, gets reinfected and keeps getting reinfected, then is when they get symptomatic, and then they might need to go to the health facility to seek medication. But from the Ministry of Health programs that we have, you know, from Malezi Bora to the school-based deworming program, we hope to capture at least most of the learners who might be having a worm infection, so that they do not persist into high school.
Okay.
Yeah.
And there's a question, you may have referred to it earlier on. Kiongo, who is watching the show, is saying, after how long should a child be dewormed? Maybe you can respond to that by also telling us some of the side effects or contraindications after receiving that drug, that tablet. What may happen to your system that you will say is because of the tablet I took?
Okay. So as we mentioned earlier, in our setting we recommend once a year. However, if the child exhibits signs and symptoms of worm infestation, then we recommend that they seek treatment, and they can be dewormed more than once a year if there are indications for this. The side effects, they are very mild, especially for albendazole. It's one of the safest drugs. Maybe just a mild nausea or a tummy ache that usually disappears within a few hours or so. But however, we caution parents that if you find your child is complaining of some severe symptoms after taking the drug, it might not be necessarily due to the drug, and we recommend that they actually seek medical attention to find out what could be the cause of any adverse side effects of this.
Okay. All right. Interesting. And Moses, so now, because some schools are not the same. Some schools will have available water every single day. Some schools may be in some situations where there's flooding, like what happened some seasons ago in Baringo. So what is the government doing to ensure that, yes, you are in your locality, there are the circumstances you're facing, but you facilitate them to at least have clean water in the different programs that you have, so that if the water is affected, for instance, by the floods, is still fit for use for drinking and hand washing? Is there any direct initiative that the government is taking for these learners?
Yes, I want to say that majority of our schools have adequate water. And for this particular exercise, it is something that we have planned for. We have talked to the teachers, we have talked to the head teachers, and they are aware that the school during this exercise must be having adequate water, because children will require water. And the other question you asked was?
No, I'm talking about, because some schools will find themselves in some circumstances. For instance, when it floods.
Yes.
Even if you recall, some seasons ago, even in parts of Nyanza counties, there was some flooding.
Yes.
And obviously, the water now gets contaminated unless it's properly harvested. So what initiatives do you have as a ministry to ensure that, yes, all those natural calamities have happened, but you'll ensure that the water that is available is clean for consumption, because water could also lead to these infections?
One, the government gives money in form of capitation, and part of that money is used to address issues of water. We also work with CDF, we also work with the county government to ensure that in case there is an emergency, we team up together to ensure that our schools have adequate water. When there are crises, like what you are referring to in Baringo, I was actually that time in Baringo. And we rallied stakeholders, and we were able to sort out the issue of water by getting tanks, getting boozers to supply water.
Okay. All right. Albert is calling us from Kitale. Albert, good morning. What's your question?
Morning, sir.
Albert, can you hear me?
Good morning, sir.
Yes, go ahead. What's your question?
Yeah, I can hear you well.
Mm-hmm.
I just wanted to propose that as the technical fellows look at issues pertaining to worms, they consider Echinococcus granulosus.
Sorry, say that again?
Echinococcus granulosus.
What is that?
It's a disease that is causing problems in Turkana, semi-arid areas.
Uh-huh. I don't know that, Dr. Are you able to pick that?
I didn't hear it, but I think he's alluding to other helminths or other parasites that are found.
We can allow him to clarify. Albert, maybe you can clarify what exactly you mean with your question.
Okay, it's a type of tapeworm that is found in semi-arid areas.
Mm. You can switch on your TV. Switch off your TV.
Let me put it off. Semi-arid areas, and it causes a lot of problems. We call it hydathic disease. Caused by worms.
Okay.
And then we also have one found in fish, the Phyllobothrium latam. It should also be addressed. And then we have the common one also among the pig eaters, pork, tinea, solium. I think maybe if they can also be considered in that, I'll be very happy.
Okay, all right. Thank you so much, Albert, calling us from Kitale. Jeremiah, you can prepare your answers, but Dr. maybe you could begin by giving us your response on those concerns, because again, there are many challenges that the population is facing. What's your response?
My response is that we do realize that there are pockets of these increased infestations in different parts of the country, but we are very confident in the structures of the county health management teams who are able to pick these out and address them, and we are 100% confident that the government facilities there are able to adequately address these, because you know we have a system in the health facilities where when you see an increased number of cases in this and that, you can be able to, you know, the county governments can be able to procure enough commodities for them, especially in certain situations or certain conditions or diseases that affect only certain pockets of the country. And we are very confident in this, in the county health management of these areas of Turkana, because I'm sure they are able to adequately address these issues at the health facility level. When we see these levels going above 20% or 50% as recommended by WHO, that's when now we come in and recommend mass drug prophylaxis to the bigger populace. But for now, we recommend that anyone who has symptoms of these or who believes that they might be having these conditions present themselves to the nearest health facility where they'll be able to get prompt treatment.
Okay. Yes, Moses, you wanted to add something?
Yeah, there's a question that was asked at Sadim. He was he was inquiring whether this program targets public school only. I want to add that this program is for public schools and private schools, and even children who are not in school, as long as the age falls between 2 years
and 14 years.
And 14 years. And I can also see another one. Even street children, during this day, they can walk to the school, the nearest school. And I would imagine even the street children are in school. They are supposed to be in school.
Okay.
They can walk to school and get treatment.
Okay, so the question that Jacob Abere is asking is, indeed, it's a noble move to deworm our children. Let them increase bases, even to informal settlements, because I have seen street children have signs of worm infections. There's another question, Freddie, you can look at. Salim, would that program be, well, this is what you are responding to, would that program be implemented in private schools? How can you reach those at home, since not all have received this information? There's another one by Felix Mushika. Just a concern, are the worms becoming drug resistant? Because I recently dewormed my daughter, but after a few weeks, she was exhibiting the same symptoms prior to deworming. We'll be raising that with Dr. here. But first, Jeremiah, in Kisumu, I mean, so much said, so many questions still coming through. But what are the specific challenges that you face, even as you go ahead with the WASH programs to ensure that there's available water, not just adequate water, but clean water for consumption? What are the other challenges that you're facing that make it difficult, so that even as you approach it from the deworming campaign, from encouraging children to wash their hands and avoid the waters or open defecation, what else is the challenge to ensuring that you have sufficient clean drinking water?
Thank you very much, Sam. I think just back to the caller that we have many types of worms, like in Turkana, hydatidosis, and we have many, but this program is designed to address common worms, what we call soil-transmitted helminthes, and these worms include, we have whipworm, Mignon geledi, we have hookworm, we have roundworm. So this program is actually, the National School-Based Deworming Program is designed to address these worms. And for the common worms, soil-transmitted worms, we are using albendazole, which is 400 milligrams. That is one dose for children aged 2 to 14 years. And for schistosomiasis, which we are not deworming for this year, we are using praziquantel. However, the challenges that we face, we know that water is still a challenge, and access to clean and safe water, which we advocate for. Because for you to be able to fight worm infection, you must be able to improve environmental hygiene and sanitation. And that is a big challenge that we still face in Kenya. And that's why we have programs like WASH, water, sanitation, and hygiene, to be able to address this. Because if we can do our preventive and promotive work very well, then many of these cases you see will really go down. There will be a huge reduction of the disease burden in our facilities once we can be able to enhance primary healthcare activities, primary healthcare program in Kenya. So we still have the challenge, yes, of access to clean and safe water. Because when you talk about ensuring that you wash your hand with soap and clean running water regularly, you might find some schools probably, yes, we have seen programs in schools where we have water tanks in schools. But still, when they go back home, when children go back home, sometimes they may not have that access to clean and safe water. At the same time, the latrine coverage is still something we are addressing in public health, because these are intestinal worms, which are a major public health problem, and these are parasites. A parasite is that organism that obtains its nourishment from you, but leaves nothing in return. So we are saying here that we still have that challenge of access to clean and safe water. The behavior is a long process, so the behavior change is still something we are still working on through advocacy campaigns and awareness, so that people can stop open defecation. And that is what we are saying in WASH, so that we stop open defecation, so that we don't contaminate our soil, our environment, because once we contaminate this, then all this fecal matter will get into our water bodies, and then we again drink the same water. We are going to eat contaminated vegetables and contaminated fruits. We are going to use dirty hands if we don't have water and soap. So the issue even of soap is also a challenge, but we are happy that partners are really moving in to support, like Kisumu. We have quite a number of partners moving in to support us. But if to the government, like county government of Kisumu, we are really committed to WASH program, so that we are really able to increase high level of hygiene and sanitation. Yes.
And Jeremiah, when you talk about people need to stop the open defecation, is that challenge because of just bad manners? So it's unavailable public toilets, but also private toilets in homes?
Just a behavior change. You know, behavior change, some is a long process. Kubadili mwenendo na mawazo za watu is a long process and takes some time for you to be able to change. Because we say that if you talk to 100 people, the conversion rate is around 10%. So it's a process that we have still to continue, and that's why we are calling upon different players, different partners, so that we move in, so that we can change that. And because if your neighbor does not have a toilet and you have it, still you are at risk of these fecal-borne infections like even cholera, dysenteries, and worms, which are hygiene-related. So we are encouraging everybody, and look at households. How many households in Kenya have access to hand washing stations? This is another challenge, an area that somebody can study on. So all these are areas that require behavior. How many households have access to toilets? A number of households with access to toilets, functional toilets, not just any toilet. So we are looking at all this in public health so that our public health officers can go around and be able to get this data and educate wananchi so that we are able to improve on environmental hygiene and sanitation so that we can be able to try to eradicate or try to reduce the burden of worms and many other diseases that are hygiene related. Okay. So that is what we can say here, that we really need to, we need teamwork. Just like in deworming, it's a whole teamwork because we have the evidence action, Deworm the World Initiative. We have Minister of Education, we have Minister of Health. They are all teaming up to be able to fight worms. And that is why we say, pamoja tuangamize minyoo. We normally say that, kwa afya na elimu bora, kwa afya na Sam, kwa afya na elimu bora tuangamize minyoo. That is our slogan if you look at our materials that we have. Okay. So it is a teamwork, and we are trying to educate communities. We are trying to educate schools, and we have a robust school health program. All right. So that we are able to enhance whatever they learn in school, they need to copy at home. Okay. If they have water in school, soap, they also need to emulate the same within their households.
All right, I want us to wind up because Ondeki George is saying COVID-19 has had a devastating effect on provision of education. However, it has also had some positive effect, for example, washing hands and also reduction of coughs among learners. Has it had any effect in terms of worm infestation among primary school pupils? I don't know whether there is any data to respond to the question, but you can make your attempt. And as you do that, let me begin with you, Dr. Catherine. Felix is asking whether worms can become drug resistant because the daughter, after treatment some few weeks ago, started also to exhibit similar symptoms just like before deworming.
Maybe what I could recommend is that he takes the daughter for a review. It could be something different. It might not really be worms, but we recommend that the daughter has a comprehensive review at a health facility. Yeah. And as to the issue of the COVID-19 improving or reducing the worm infestation, our partners, Cambry, is about to do an end-term evaluation on the infestation rate of children in the counties that we are deworming. And with this data that they are getting, we will be able to compare it with previous data. So by the end of the year, in around November, we'll be able to see, because a study will actually have been done, and then we'll have evidence where we can be able to see if the measures that we've put in place for COVID-19 has actually helped reducing the worm infestation in schools. Yeah.
And for you, Moses, what's your response about some of these questions, but also your closing remarks on what next as this program begins today?
Daktari has, I think, answered adequately. I'm calling upon the stakeholders, the parents, the teachers, the guardians, and all leaders to support this initiative, this program, to ensure that all our children who are prone to this infestation in those 14 counties, ensure that our children are in school so that they get treated. The treatment will be done today, tomorrow, and the next day. That's the program. And it will be very unfortunate if a child is left out because the effects of infestation are bad for our education. A child who is free from worms is able to learn better, participates in the learning process better, has a brighter future. So it is important we ensure all the children in this region, 14 counties, aged 2 to 14, in school and out of school, public school or private school, get to the schools. Teachers are prepared, they are waiting for them. Thank you.
Okay, and Dr. Christine, as you give your closing remarks, maybe you can also make a comment on the adult population. What is the recommended rate of deworming? How soon? How often?
So for the adult population, WHO recommends mostly for pregnant women. It shows that it improves birth outcomes and reduces low birth weight in the neonates and reduces neonatal deaths. Now, this is a study that was released by WHO earlier in the year. And so we are recommending deworming for that cohort. And even for the general adult population, when you deworm the entire community, you reduce the burden of the worms in the community, the eggs in the soil. So if we are looking at eliminating soil transmitted helminths as a public health problem in Kenya, we want to look at deworming parts of those entire adult population that are actually might be causing reinfection in the children, even if they are few.
How often?
We usually recommend once a year.
Once a year?
Once a year.
The same drug or something else?
The same drug.
Okay.
It's actually safe. And maybe for my parting shot, what I would want to emphasize is that the government of Kenya has taken up the purchase of these deworming drugs. So WHO has been recommending for increased domestic funding to support this. So for this round of deworming, I just want to emphasize that the drugs that we are using have been purchased through funds from the Ministry of Health, from the government.
Okay, all right. And Jeremiah, I don't know whether you have any closing remarks briefly?
Yeah, thank you very much, Sam. I think deworming is very, very important, Sam. And we have seen evidence from studies that deworming will be able to increase concentration in class, will be able to improve on participation, and reduce school absenteeism by around 25%. And that is really a very huge benefit in terms of national school-based deworming. We are targeting children aged 2 to 14 years, both enrolled and unenrolled, and we want to call upon all parents to allow all these children to be dewormed because of the benefits that we have just outlined in this. And we are saying we have this time around, we have been deworming in 27 counties, and this year we shall be able to deworm in 21 counties. And so far we are left with 14 to go, starting from today to 16th. And these counties will include Kisumu, where I am. Tomorrow Kisumu will be doing their deworming day is tomorrow, and we expect our PS education to attend, to come and observe what we are doing. And these drugs are free. We are going to deworm for soil transmitted helminths. We are talking about whipworm, we're talking about hookworm, we're talking about roundworm, and the drug we shall use is free, safe, and highly recommended by WHO, and the drug is albendazole, 400 milligram one dose for children 2 to 14 years, and this program is supported by Evidence Action, Deworm the World Initiative, in collaboration with Ministry of Health and Ministry of Education and our counties. Thank you.
Indeed, a tablet and a sip of water is all you need for that deworming to take effect. Thank you so much, Dr. Catherine Ombogo. Sorry? Sorry?
Christine.
Oh, yes. Dr. Christine Wambogo. I don't know why I'm calling you Catherine. Dr. Christine Wambogo and Moses Karate, as well as Jeremiah, who was joining us from Kisumu. He's a public health official in Kisumu County. That's our time here on Daybreak. Pamoja tuangamiza minyoo. Up next is Willis Raguru with Matters Social. He'll be here with his panelists. Be sure to stay tuned. Bye for now. My name is Sam Gituku. See you some other time.